Emily came through the front door like someone who just stepped into the light after years in a dark room. It wasn't the way she walked or the sound of her keys hitting the dish that made me look up. It was the look on her face. Bright, energized, almost unfamiliar. I was at the kitchen table, flipping through a week's worth of mail, utility bill, credit card offers, some local ad about replacing windows. Nothing worth reading. The house was quiet, the kind of stillness that comes just after sunset in the suburbs. I figured Emily might be tired after her evening out with friends. But she wasn't tired. She was buzzing, almost vibrating with something I didn't recognize. Her cheeks were pink, her eyes wide, and she was smiling in that way people do when they've heard something that changes them, or think they have. "How was the birthday?" I asked, keeping my voice light. Emily brushed a few strands of hair behind her ear as she crossed the room to the fridge. "It was amazing. Yeah." I tried to meet her eyes, but she was already rummaging for the cucumber water she liked. "Better than I expected," she said. "Actually, it wasn't really just a birthday party. It kind of turned into something else." I leaned back in my chair, giving her my attention. "Something else." She pulled out her drink and twisted off the cap. "I met this couple, Sophie and Miles Walker. They're not like anyone I've met before. They do therapeutic work, but not traditional therapy. It's more like emotional recalibration, alignment, helping people find their real selves." I raised an eyebrow. "So, they're life coaches?" Emily laughed. "No. Not like that. They're trained psychologists, but they left the clinical world behind. They run these small group sessions out in Joshua Tree. Deep conversation, breath work, emotional clarity. It's hard to explain, but it felt like the first real conversation I've had in years." I blinked. "That's a strong statement." She turned to face me, leaning against the kitchen counter. "They said things that just hit me, about how we get stuck in roles, patterns, how we bury parts of ourselves to make other people comfortable. That one stung a little. I didn't show it." "Sounds intense," I said. Emily smiled, but there was distance in her eyes, like she was still halfway back in that room with them. "They invited me to visit their space this weekend. It's not formal or anything, just a small circle. They said I had really clear energy, that I might benefit from reconnecting." "Reconnecting with what?" I asked. "With myself." I nodded slowly. "And you want to go?" She nodded without hesitation. "I think I do." I didn't argue. Emily had always gone through phases, juice cleanses, silent yoga retreats. That month she was obsessed with acrylic painting. I figured this would pass like the others. But it didn't pass. Over the next few days, something started shifting in her. Not in a dramatic way, but in small, subtle changes. She started waking up earlier than me, which never happened, and meditating in the spare room. She played ambient music throughout the house. Chimes, soft voices, whispered affirmations. She changed her wardrobe, soft linen pants, oversized tunics, earthy colors. She stopped asking about my day. One evening, while we were both in the kitchen, she mentioned them again. Casually, like it was normal now. "Sophie said the body stores trauma in ways that sabotage our relationships," she said, slicing up avocado like she was reading off a grocery list. "That most people live in quiet suffering because they think that's what love is supposed to feel like." I was cutting vegetables too. "Do you think that's true?" She didn't answer right away. "I think maybe I've been asleep for a long time." That sentence stuck with me for hours. I didn't sleep well that night. Emily curled up beside me, quiet and still. But I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of dream she thought she'd just woken up from, and who she thought she was waking up to become. I had no idea yet how far she would go with them, or how far from me she'd already drifted. All I knew was, the glow in her eyes wasn't for me anymore. The first weekend she went out to Joshua Tree, I didn't think much of it. Emily said it would just be a few hours. "They're hosting a mini-circle," she told me. "Just a small gathering. Breath work, grounding exercises, maybe some journaling." She said it like she was going to a book club, not a spiritual reprogramming. I offered to drive her. She smiled like I'd missed the point. "Mark," she said gently, "it's not really your scene." So I let her go. I watched her back out of the driveway in that silver crossover we bought together 5 years ago. She waved once. I waved back. Then the car disappeared down the street, and the house felt too quiet. She came home after midnight. I'd stayed up, half out of habit, half out of something closer to dread. She walked in barefoot, sandals in hand, hair loose around her shoulders. Her face was flushed, her voice low and calm. "They have a beautiful space," she said as she dropped her shoes by the door.
No TV, no clocks.
Just floor cushions, plants, and open air. It's like stepping out of time. I asked if they had kids. She shook her head. "They don't believe in bringing more people into a world that's already so disconnected. They believe in chosen family, not forced." She told me about the fire pit they sat around, the release ceremony, where people wrote things they were ready to let go of and threw them into the flames. "Sophie said I'm holding back because of fear," she added softly. "Fear of being fully expressed." I nodded and poured her a glass of water. As she drank, she stared at the wall like she wasn't really in our kitchen anymore. Like some part of her was still in the desert, under the stars, listening to Miles talk about energy alignment and emotional truth. "They think I have strong energy," she said. "Miles said he could feel it the moment I walked in." I didn't know what to say to that. We went to bed, but she didn't reach for me, didn't touch me. She turned on her side and pulled the covers close. I lay awake again, trying not to think about how different she felt, like a signal I used to receive clearly but now only picked up in static. The visits didn't stop. In fact, they became more frequent. Twice a week, then 3 times. Sometimes she'd go out for dinner, sometimes for what she called circle integration work. She stopped calling them new friends. She started calling them my people. She came home from their house glowing, always glowing, relaxed, smiling, barefoot even in the cold. She'd sit at the table and tell me about breakthroughs and emotional shedding, like she was being cleansed of something, and I was part of the dirt being washed away. And it wasn't just what she added to her life, it was what she stopped doing. She stopped making coffee in the morning for both of us. Stopped asking about my projects at work. Stopped waiting for me when we used to go on walks. Stopped eating dinner at the same time. When I suggested a weekend away, just the 2 of us, she said, "That feels too forced right now." I said nothing. I just nodded. One Saturday night, she said she was going to help Sophie set up for a sacred meal out at the retreat house. I asked if I could come. She gave me that soft, distant smile she'd perfected over the past few weeks. "It's not for everyone, Mark. I don't want you to feel out of place." She left around 4 p.m. At 1:38 a.m., I got a text. "Too much energy work tonight. Crashing here. Love you."
No punctuación.
No, I love you. Just words. The next morning, she came home wearing a sweater I didn't recognize. She smelled like sage and citrus and someone else's laundry. I didn't ask questions. I wasn't sure I wanted the answers yet, but that was the moment I stopped pretending this was harmless. A few days later, she took off her wedding ring. She didn't make a speech, just said, "It's too tight lately. I need to feel unbound." Unbound. That word hung in the air like smoke that wouldn't clear. And I knew, deep in my bones, that whatever she was chasing out there in Joshua Tree, it wasn't going to include me. I stared at her ring sitting in a small ceramic dish on her dresser, the same one we bought together in Santa Fe on our 10th anniversary. It looked small now, lonely, like it didn't belong to anyone anymore. That word she used, unbound, kept repeating in my head. Not free, not light, unbound, like something had been untied, cut loose, like the part of her that was mine had been gently removed and filed away. We still lived in the same house, but it felt more like a waiting room than a home. She floated through rooms like she didn't live there anymore.
No anger, no yelling.
Just distance, as if whatever part of her had once needed me, didn't anymore. I tried to make plans. I asked if she wanted to see a movie. She said she had a breathwork circle. I suggested dinner out. She said the group was gathering to share intentions. I brought up a weekend away, just us. She blinked at me like I'd asked her to skip her own birthday. "They need me," she said one night, setting down a bundle of dried herbs she'd bought from a crystal shop. "We're doing a grounding weekend. Sophie says I'm starting to open more, and the group is responding to that energy." I looked at her across the kitchen island. "I thought I needed you." She smiled faintly, that new smile I'd grown to dread. The one that said, "You don't get it, but that's okay." Every now and then I'd catch her drawing in a small leather-bound journal she kept in her tote. Not notes or grocery lists, visions. She said Miles encouraged everyone to map their transformation. I saw a page once. It was a sketch of a house surrounded by desert plants and words like sovereignty, release, and expansion written in the margins. "You put me in there?" I asked. She didn't look up. "It's not about people. It's about space." That weekend, she stayed overnight again. No warning this time. Just a text at midnight that said, "Moon work went late. Crashing here. Hope you understand. Hope you understand." I sat in bed alone, rereading that message while our wedding photo still hung on the wall. Her face in that picture was soft, playful, the kind of expression that made me believe we'd always have something solid, even when things got weird. Now I wasn't sure if we were even in the same relationship anymore. The following week, I came home from work and found her on a video call with Sophie. She didn't mute herself when I walked in. She didn't stop talking, just smiled and gave me a wave like I was passing through someone else's living room. Later that night, we sat on opposite ends of the couch.
No te ve.
Just silence and the occasional hum from the dishwasher. "I've been thinking," she said, finally breaking the stillness. "Yeah." She looked down at her hands. "About who I really am. About identity. I think I've been carrying roles that aren't mine anymore." I stayed still. "I don't think monogamy fits me," she added, almost too softly. I set my drink down. "Is this about Miles?" She looked up sharply.
No.
"Not just him. It's about the idea of ownership. About what we were taught love has to look like. What we've accepted as normal, even when it hasn't felt right." I didn't respond right away. I just looked at her. This woman who once begged to stay home and do nothing, who cried when we watched sad commercials, who hated driving in the dark. Now she was talking about detachment and energy flow and how the structure of love was inherently flawed. "I'm not saying this to hurt you," she continued. I can't shrink myself anymore to fit into something I don't believe in." I nodded, slowly, but inside something broke. Not a crack from betrayal, but a quiet realization. She was already gone. I just hadn't caught up to her yet. It was a Wednesday night when she finally said the words out loud. We were standing in the kitchen, each of us holding a mug we weren't drinking from. Mine had gone cold. Hers probably had too. The silence between us had weight to it, like we both knew something was coming. "I think you need to understand something," Emily said, her eyes focused on the tile floor. I said nothing. I just waited. "The time I spend with Sophie and Miles, it's not just casual," she said quietly. "It's not just friendship." I stood still, mug in hand, breath caught somewhere in my chest. "There's a closeness there," she continued. "A connection that's different. Not wrong, just different." The refrigerator hummed, then stopped. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. She finally looked at me. Her face wasn't guilty. It wasn't smug. It was worse than either, peaceful. "If that's something you can't accept," she said, "then maybe we need to talk about separation. Or divorce." I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I didn't throw the mug like some guy in a bad movie. I just looked at her and asked the only question that mattered. "How long?" She blinked. "What do you mean? How long has it been more than just friendship?" She hesitated. "Not long, but enough to confirm what I already knew." "I'm not sure when it changed," she said. "But it has." "Are you in love with them?" She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. "I feel seen," she said softly. "Not for who I was, for who I'm becoming." "And I'm not part of that?" I asked. Her eyes softened, not with affection, but pity. "I don't think you want to be." I let that hang in the air. "I need to think," I said. "Take your time," she replied, already turning away. But I didn't need time. I already knew. She had made her choice, slowly, quietly, over the last few months. She just needed me to sign off on it now, to bless the path she was already walking. But I wasn't going to do that. What I was going to do was figure out exactly who she'd chosen over me. That night, after she fell asleep in the spare room, because that's where she slept now, I opened my laptop. I started with what I knew: Sophie and Miles Walker, Joshua Tree, California. Their website was slick, the kind of pastel, polished minimalism that screams expensive and vague. Photos of group circles, desert landscapes, smiles that looked just a little too perfect. Every testimonial said the same thing. They helped me find my true self. I finally let go of fear.
No judgment.
Just love. But then I found a blog. It was written by a woman named Melanie. She'd gone to one of their early retreats. The tone started out glowing, connection, breakthrough, inner healing. But then it shifted. They made me feel special, she wrote. Said I was different. Said my energy was what their work needed. Then came the requests. Help with a shared business account. Contributions to a community living project. Being the mediator when Sophie and Miles fought behind closed doors. Then, silence. They stopped returning my calls. Blocked my number. Said I had become toxic to the group. My stomach dropped. I found another post. Different author. Same story. Connection. Praise. Contribution. Exclusion. Pattern. They didn't build circles. They built funnels, drawing people in, squeezing them dry, then pushing them out the moment they became inconvenient. Emily wasn't cheating on me. She was being conditioned, and they were very, very good at it. I closed the laptop and sat back in my chair. This wasn't about jealousy anymore, or heartbreak, or betrayal. This was about control, and I wasn't going to let her walk into a fire with her eyes closed. I still believed in the vows we made, even if she didn't. And if I couldn't save the marriage, I could at least try to save what was left of the woman I used to know. I didn't confront her right away. What was I supposed to say? That I'd been reading horror stories about her new spiritual mentors online? That I thought Sophie and Miles were running some kind of manipulative cult disguised as a desert healing practice? She would have smiled and told me I was being close-minded. That I didn't understand energy. That I was clinging to the past, to a structure she was evolving beyond. So instead, I moved in silence. The next morning, while she was out doing sunrise yoga with the group or journaling her soul out on someone else's patio, I pulled down a box from the closet. Old tax records, our marriage license, the deed to the house, all the stuff you forget you have until you need to protect it. I scanned what mattered, filed the rest, and locked the originals in my office drawer. Then I opened a new bank account. Not a big move. Nothing flashy. I didn't empty our savings or cancel the joint cards. I just redirected my direct deposit, adjusted a few recurring payments, and started creating a line between me and whatever this version of Emily was becoming. She didn't notice, or if she did, she didn't ask. She was gone more and more anyway, sometimes for the entire day, sometimes overnight. Her explanations were always the same. We lost track of time. We were working on emotional release exercises. There was a sound bath under the stars. I couldn't leave in the middle. Once she came home barefoot, carrying her shoes in one hand and a string of handmade beads in the other. It's grounding, she said when she saw me staring. Shoes block the earth's vibration. I didn't argue. What was the point? Emily wasn't trying to share her new world with me. She wasn't hoping I'd come along. She had already closed the door and locked it from the inside. So I made another quiet move. I called a lawyer. Not one of those billboard attorneys with sunglasses and a slogan. Just a quiet guy named Greg Singer. I'd met him years ago through a friend in my bowling league. He was calm, low-key, and had gone through his own divorce a few years back. I trusted him to keep things quiet. "Tell me what's going on," he said after I introduced myself. I gave him the basics. My wife was seeing two people. Emotionally, maybe physically. She was being pulled into something I didn't fully understand, but it felt dangerous. Not just for our marriage, for her. He didn't sound surprised. "You'd be amazed how often this kind of thing happens out there," he said. "Joshua Tree, Topanga, Sedona. People looking for transformation, ending up in messes." "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Start making copies. Finances, property, insurance, anything you share. And don't confront her yet. The more emotion, the worse it gets. Just prepare." Quietly. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. Got it. That phrase stuck with me. Just prepare. Quietly. So that's what I did. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost in my own home. I kept up appearances. I smiled when she walked in. I nodded when she talked about vision boards and vibrational shifts. I listened or pretended to, but inside, I was building a wall she wouldn't see until it was finished. She talked less and less about us. Now it was all they. They say I'm entering a new phase. They think I'm shedding the last layer of fear. They told me I need space from old dynamics. And then, one night, she sat on the edge of the bed, not our bed, her new mattress in the guest room, and said, "I think I'm going to invest in the collective." I kept my voice steady. "What collective?" "Sophie and Miles are launching something bigger," she said. "A retreat center. Communal living. Healing spaces. They're asking people to step in as partners. Spiritually. Financially. Emotionally. How much are they asking for?" She shrugged. "Not a set number. Just whatever feels right." That was the moment I knew I had to move fast. Because this wasn't about breathwork or journaling anymore. This was about money, power, control. And they were about to take everything she had, including what we'd built together. By the time Emily said she was stepping into shared abundance, I already had everything I needed. Bank statements, credit reports, insurance policies, every account number and login we'd ever created together. I had it all printed, scanned, and backed up twice. My lawyer had copies. A second set was in a fireproof box under my desk. She thought she was evolving. I was making sure I didn't get taken down with her. She barely noticed. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. Her focus was entirely on Sophie and Miles now, or as she called them, my anchors. "They see the potential in me," she said one evening as she prepared a salad with ingredients I couldn't pronounce. "Miles says I've been holding myself back for years, and I didn't even know it." She looked at me as she said it, like I was part of the problem he'd diagnosed. "You never held me back intentionally," she added, "but the life we built, it's small, it's safe, and I'm not sure I want safe anymore." That was the final push. The next morning, I filed the paperwork. Greg walked me through it step by step, no drama, no posturing. He knew I didn't want to fight. I just wanted clean boundaries and the ability to walk away with my name intact. "You're doing the right thing," he said. "You're getting ahead of it. That's rare." I handed him the signed forms, and it felt like putting down a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying. That night, I came home to the smell of incense and some kind of soft chanting echoing from a Bluetooth speaker. Emily was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, her eyes closed, swaying slightly to the rhythm. She didn't even notice when I walked past. I went into the kitchen, opened a beer, and stared out the window for a long time. There was a time I would have sat down beside her, asked questions, tried to understand. That time was gone. I waited until she was brushing her teeth before I handed her the envelope. She looked at it like I just handed her a package that arrived by mistake. "What's this?" I didn't soften my voice. "Divorce papers." She held them in both hands, didn't open them, didn't panic, just stared. "Seriously?" she asked. I nodded once. She opened the envelope slowly. Read the top page in silence. Then she looked up at me. "You really think this is the answer?" "I think it's the only honest step left." She crossed her arms. "I was hoping you'd be more open-minded." "About what?" "About you pouring your soul, and our money, into people who are using you." She flinched, but only for a second. "It's not like that," she said. "This isn't about them. It's about me."
No, irraplia.
"It's about how you stopped caring about us the moment they told you you were special." She shook her head. "You don't understand. You never really wanted to. You just wanted the version of me that made sense to you. I wanted the version of you that didn't hand over our life to strangers in the desert." That was the first time I saw her crack, just a little. Her jaw tightened, her eyes narrowed. "You're scared," she said finally. "This threatens you, because you can't label it. You don't know how to control it." I took a breath, steady, calm. "You're not the first person they've done this to," I said. "I've read the stories, the testimonials that start out glowing and end with bankruptcy and shame." She didn't respond. I kept my tone even. "This isn't love. This is a pitch, a script. You just didn't notice because they told you exactly what you needed to hear." Silence. "You've made your choice," I said. "This is mine." She looked down at the papers again. Her hand trembled just slightly. "I need time to think," she whispered. "You've had time," I replied. "I'm the one who needed space to see things clearly." She walked away without another word. And in that moment, I realized something. She didn't walk away from the marriage today. She walked away months ago. The silence, the distance, the lies dressed as growth. This was just the paperwork catching up. The morning after I handed Emily the divorce papers, she acted like nothing had happened. She moved around the kitchen in one of her flowing linen wraps, humming along to some flute-heavy playlist. The same calm, untouchable energy she'd been wearing like armor ever since she met Sophie and Miles. She didn't mention the envelope. She didn't ask if I was serious. Maybe she thought it was just a warning shot. Maybe she figured I'd cool down and fall back into place, like I always did when she needed space. But I wasn't bluffing. That night, while she was out at what she now called a light transmission circle, I packed a small suitcase, a few clothes, my passport, documents, a hard drive with everything I might need. I wasn't running away. I was getting ahead of the collapse. The house felt strange as I moved through it. So many things that once meant something. Photos, knickknacks from our trips, anniversary cards, now just looked like leftovers from a version of life I couldn't trust anymore. I left them where they were. Let her keep the symbols. I was done with illusions. I didn't tell her I was leaving right away. I waited until the next morning. She came home just after sunrise, barefoot again, carrying a box of herbs and crystals. Her eyes were glassy, her smile soft. "You missed something beautiful," she said. I didn't answer. She went straight to the shower. I grabbed my bag, left the house, and drove to my brother's place an hour away. He didn't ask for details, just handed me a beer and set up the spare room like I was staying indefinitely. "You okay?" he asked. "Not yet," I said, "but I will be." Over the next few days I stayed quiet, focused, cleaned up what I needed to legally, handled the paperwork, answered emails, closed shared accounts. Greg, my lawyer, handled most of it, smooth, silent, efficient. Meanwhile, Emily went full speed ahead. Her social media lit up with photos of desert bonfires, candlelit circles, group meditations, and blurry selfies with Sophie and Miles, always with captions like, becoming, expanding, letting go of fear. She didn't mention the divorce. She didn't mention me at all. Just endless variations of stepping into freedom. Then one post stopped me cold. A picture of a document, half blurred, with the caption, co-creating the future, investing in the vision. So proud to be part of this sacred home. I recognized the document. It was a property agreement, and her name was on it. So were theirs. A quick public records search confirmed it. A house in Joshua Tree, recently transferred into the name of a private LLC called Desert Heart Collective. Listed members, Sophie Walker, Miles Walker, Emily Carter. I stared at the screen for a long time. She'd done it. She'd poured her share of the settlement, and maybe more, into their dream. A dream I was certain she wouldn't be part of for long. They didn't need her. They needed what she could give. Time, energy, resources. And when that ran out, when she started asking questions, needing something in return, they'd let her drift away like she'd never mattered. I'd seen it in the testimonials, in the warning blogs. This was a system. Charm, bond, extract, replace. And now Emily was the latest name on the rotation. I didn't reach out, didn't warn her again. She was too deep. Any concern from me would look like jealousy, fear, low vibration. Let her believe she was free. Let her believe she was special. She'd learn the truth soon enough. And when that happened, I'd be gone. Clean, safe, watching from a distance, not out of bitterness, but clarity. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't exposing someone else's lie. It's walking away before it destroys you too. It happened faster than I expected. The beginning of the end came on a Thursday night, just 3 weeks after Emily signed her name onto the Desert Heart Collective. I didn't hear it from her directly, not at first. I saw it online. The collective's website went down. Their social media pages went quiet. No more glowing captions. No more selfies under moonlight. Just silence. And then came the post. Not from Emily. From someone named Jamie, tagged in a comment thread on a Joshua Tree community board. FYI, Miles and Sophie left town. Rumor is they're in Costa Rica now. Something about expanding the circle. The property's empty. Someone said the utilities got shut off last week. I stared at the screen, heart sinking. It was just like the stories I'd read before. The same exact pattern. They built the illusion, created connection, took what they needed, then vanished. Emily didn't post anything for 5 days. Then, out of nowhere, I got the text. "Do you have a minute to talk?" I stared at it for a while. Not because I didn't want to respond, because I already knew what was coming. She called that evening. Her voice was low, stripped of the silky calm she used to practice like a mantra. There were no buzzwords, no energy terms, just raw, hollow weariness. "They asked me to move out," she said.
No emotion.
Just fact. They said my energy had shifted, that I was creating disharmony in the space. Miles told me I needed solitude. Sophie said it was time for me to learn self-containment. I didn't say anything. Let her keep going. And then I saw a photo on Sophie's private page. They're in Costa Rica with someone new, a guy named Eli. They said he's joining the circle. Her breath caught. They didn't even tell me they were leaving. Now the cracks showed. Her voice trembled, not with anger, with disbelief. "I sold my car," she said. "Put almost everything I had into the collective. They convinced me we were building something permanent, that we didn't need contracts, just trust." I could hear her trying to keep her composure. But when I asked about the deed, they said it was being restructured. I'm not even on the paperwork anymore. The LLC was dissolved and refiled under a new name. I couldn't prove I was part of it even if I wanted to. Her voice dropped into a whisper. I think I was just funding the next phase. I was never going to be part of it. I said nothing. Sometimes silence is all there is. "I don't have anywhere to go," she said. "I have $300 and a duffel bag. I'm staying in a friend's spare room in Yucca Valley. I don't even have a car anymore." Still, I didn't speak. She needed to empty it out. "They said I was the final piece of their puzzle," she whispered. "That I completed something they'd been building for years, and now they won't even answer my calls." Her voice cracked. "They used me. I didn't say I told you so. I didn't need to." She already knew. There was a long pause. "I'm sorry," she said, and I believed her, because it wasn't just guilt in her voice. It was grief. Grief for who she used to be, for the safety she'd thrown away, for the person who believed in magic words and sacred circles and people who pretended they loved her because it made her easier to control. "I lost everything," she added. "No," I said quietly. "You lost what was never really yours to begin with." We didn't talk much after that. There was nothing left to say. She knew what she'd done, and I knew she'd already paid the price. She'd believed in something beautiful, something free, wild, and profound. But what she got was a con wrapped in lavender oil and soft smiles. And now, the people who saw her soul didn't even text her back. That's when she truly understood. They hadn't saved her. They'd studied her. Then they took everything they could, and disappeared into the next version of their lie. Emily never asked me for help. Not directly. After that last call, she disappeared again. This time into a version of herself she didn't know how to explain to anyone. No more hashtags.
No spiritual affirmations.
Just silence. But word got around. I heard from a mutual friend that she'd moved into a converted garage behind someone's house near Yucca Valley. The kind of place with one window and a curtain for a door.
No actini. No kitchen.
Just a hot plate and a futon. She took a part-time job at a smoothie cafe that played the same 5 indie folk songs on repeat. She didn't run the place. She didn't own it. She stood behind the counter, wiped down blenders, and asked people if they wanted chia seeds for an extra $1. She used to mock places like that. Now she was living in one. The woman who once built campaigns for national brands was now sweeping dried fruit off the floor and pretending not to notice when customers avoided eye contact. The worst part? She didn't blame anyone. Not me. Not even them. That's what stuck with me. I kept waiting for some kind of backlash. A bitter post. Cryptic message. Some online attempt to reframe it all as part of the journey. But it never came. She was quiet. Like she knew. Like she finally understood how deep she'd gone, and how little she had left. A month passed. Then another. And every so often, I'd hear little pieces. Someone saw her waiting at the bus stop with a tote bag full of journals. Another said she was cleaning part-time at a yoga studio. Not teaching. Not even assisting. Just folding towels.
Scrubbing mats. Refilling tires.
The people in those spaces, the ones she used to admire, didn't see her as a guide anymore. She was background, a helper, disposable. Once, I passed by that studio on my way to the hardware store. I wasn't looking for her, but she was there. Through the window, kneeling by a small shelf, refolding blankets. She looked tired, not just physically, tired in the bones, tired in the soul. I didn't go in. I didn't wave. I just watched her for a few seconds. She didn't see me, and maybe that was for the best, because I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt closure. She had chased something, freedom, identity, transformation, and when it asked her to give everything, she did. Willingly. She handed over her ring, her home, her money, her name, all because someone told her she was ready to evolve. And when she was no longer useful, they let her fall without a second thought.
No ceremony, no circle.
Just silence. She'd fallen for people who preached unconditional love, but what they meant was conditional obedience. Once she started questioning, once the glow dimmed and the money stopped flowing, she was framed as resistance, as low vibration, as the problem, and they did what they'd always done, moved on, found someone new, and she was left behind, not just broke, but erased. She didn't have to call me again. She didn't need to. That last conversation, the one where she said she was ashamed, was real. She wasn't playing victim. She wasn't asking to be rescued. She was just broken open, and maybe that was the only truth she'd found in all of it. I never wanted to see her suffer. But I also knew this part, this fall, was the only thing that could truly pull her out of the spell. Because sometimes people don't wake up until the dream turns on them, until the light becomes a burn, until the freedom feels like drowning. So I let her go. Fully.
No bitterness.
Just release. She had chosen her path, and now she was walking every painful step of it, alone.